Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning, depending on when you're listening to this. Welcome to the 94th of hopefully many episodes of Bard Advice, a D&D slash TTRPG slash nerd-centric podcast where I, Charles Chaz Yazik, the DM, the Bard, however you may know me, do my best to answer any questions that you might have regarding any of those things. Thank you all for joining this evening. Glad to see all of the regulars. Always appreciative of your attendance. Before we get started, let's go over a few of the things that we like to do at the top of the show. The first of which is to remind everyone of the email for the show, which is bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice. Please send any questions, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques, etc. to bardadvice@gmail.com, and we'll answer them on here. If you want to get some merch, you can do so over at manshorts.com, or more notably, you can go to krakendice.com and get one of the custom limited sets that we released with Kraken this last year. And if you'd like to contribute to anything that I'm doing musically, you can do so directly via PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo, all of which are Yazik, Yahzick. So I hope that everybody's doing well. It's been a long day. We also, at the top of the hour, like to remind everyone, like to thank all of our members, patrons, super chatters. Remind everybody to please like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, rate the podcast, join the Discord. Yeah, and I think that that's everything. So, thank you all again for joining. We've got 7 questions this evening, and we also have some stuff that I want to talk about for Art Corner, and then another little thing that I want to talk about. So let's go ahead and get into Art Corner. So for Art Corner this week, I just wanted to recommend a show that my wife and I have just recently finished watching on Netflix, Beauty in Black. It's Tyler Perry's new show. It's a drama, and it's very sort of the haves and have-nots kind of story. I think it's really good. I really enjoyed it. In particular, the last episode was really, really good. It left off on a really strong cliffhanger. And I'm not super crazy about some of the acting or some of the dialogue, but I think overall the story is really good. So I highly recommend checking it out. It's good. Also, we finished The Penguin this last week, and man, so good. And I think that it was pretty perfect, pretty great way to end it. I think they did a really great job. And also, just another note on Art Corner, a reminder, everyone, of my new single, Cylcone, is available now on all platforms. If you haven't heard that, check it out. I'm always working on new music. And then just another reminder of the other show that I do with my friend Song on Sundays, Bartificial Intelligence. That's on his YouTube channel on Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, where we make AI music with Suno and with the audience, more importantly. So live viewers come in and we chat and we make music. And Suno just had a big update too, so I'd be interested to see what the dealio is with that. I have not had an opportunity to mess with it too much since the update, but we'll see. So that's everything for Art Corner. Also, before we get into questions, I just wanted to go ahead and kind of throw this out there because I don't want it to be a situation where people feel that the rug was pulled. But I will say that all good things come to an end. And I also don't want to be in a position where I'm overstaying my welcome in terms of content, but also in terms of my energy and where that artistic and creative flow is going. So, we're getting towards the end of the year as we wrap up the last few D&D edition episodes this year. We probably won't be making any more of those moving forward. And I also will be wrapping up Bard Advice. So there are 6 more Fridays in 2024, which would mean that our final episode would be 100. So that's what we're doing. And it's an unfortunate announcement, but, 100 episodes, I think, is 100 hours worth of Bard Advice, I think is really strong. I'm not going to be disappearing from the internet. I now that I've got my certification, honestly, I was just telling my wife this the other day, like, I kind of just want to like take a break from making content. Like, I'm always going to make stuff, and I think that I'm mostly going to be putting a lot of my focus and effort into music in my spare time. But I'm just kind of in a place where like I really want to focus on my career and, you know, just finding out what the next thing is going to be for me and for us. Justin is always working in film as well, and he's getting into a place now where I think that he's making some real moves as far as getting his stuff in front of people. So it might be, you know, who knows? In 6 months, we might be writing a script or something for somebody. But all that's to say, like, I only have so much time in a week, in a month, and I'm not going to have much time for this much longer. But fear not, that's still a ways off, right? I mean, there's 6 more Fridays in this year, so with that and this episode, that makes 7 more. And then it's an even 100, and then they will, you know, they'll stay there, so people can listen to them again. So, yeah, there's a podcast that I really love that ended earlier this year as well called Dudesy, and I don't think that they made many more than 100 episodes. I do think that there is such thing as, like, overstaying. Like, unless it's a really, really dynamic and fun podcast, which, you know, I think that this one is. But I think that there's only so many questions and there's only so much advice, I guess, when it comes to D&D. So I appreciate the kind words. You know, and like I said, I'm not going to just like disappear. I'm always going to be around making music and making something. Who knows? Maybe you'll find that maybe my next content venture will be in the form of like supplemental stuff for TTRPGs and stuff. Who knows? What's going to happen to the Man Shorts channel? Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we're not going to like delete it or anything. I think that there's going to be stuff that's here that's available for people to watch. And, you know, maybe we will make stuff later and throw it up here and just see. But it's just, I've been making content on YouTube since 2008. You know, the Man Short stuff kicked off like about 9 or 10 years ago, like 15, like middle of 15. But I was making content for a long time before that, too. So, and yes, Chris, there likely will be something in that vein as to like kind of a farewell thing. So, okay. But that's, you know, that's not something that's not a today problem. It's just an announcement for the future. All right. So, like I said, we've got 7 questions. I want to do a little chat, but not too much because I do want to see if I can hop off and catch the fight, depending on when all of that starts. So, all right. So the first question of the evening is from Troy. And Troy asks, "Hello, Bardist Bard. My group and I have been playing D&D for the last year or 2. We've only ever done pre-made modules or one-shots. A few weeks ago, I was all but nominated to DM our first Homebrew campaign. In your opinion, what are the most important things to keep in mind when transitioning from modules to Homebrew? Same question for chat. Thanks." Thank you for the question, Troy. And chat, feel free to type up your thoughts and shoot them over. But I wrote some stuff down, and we'll talk about it a bit. So, let's see. Plan ahead as much as you can, but don't overplan. When you're running a module, everything's there for you. Like paths, locations, characters, stat blocks, all of that stuff is there. And so you can get kind of spoiled to that fact where you don't have to worry about whether or not you thought of something because they thought of it. And when you're dealing with Homebrew stuff, you do have to kind of have your bases covered or be prepared to kind of adjust on the fly. You're probably going to need to be prepared to adjust on the fly in general. So, like, I think flexibility in general is much more necessary in a Homebrew than in a module or a one-shot. Now, that's not to say that the party can't do something that's totally off the rails and that, you know, that the module or the one-shot totally hasn't accounted for. In fact, I'm sure that happens often. But I think that when there's a module or a one-shot, there's kind of an understanding of like, here's what we're doing here. But when you're talking about a homebrew campaign that you're going to be doing over the course of like weeks or months at a time, it's a lot more broad with, what the character's goals are as individual character development, and then also as a party, and then like the storyline stuff, and how many of those you've got going on. So, the notes on like stuff that's already accounted for in modules, it's in addition to like paths, locations, stat blocks, it also accounts for stuff like weapons and items, like their stats, the stats of like ships or vehicles, costs for items. So in that, remember that the more you homebrew, the more you have to keep track of. And what might be a good idea is for you to use a module as rails for you to customize your own story. So just kind of like plugging in and, treating it kind of like a modular thing where modular thing where you can, replace and add parts as needed. I think that knowing your players and their tendencies is very helpful, even if you know what kind of characters they intend on playing and how they intend on playing them, right? So even if you don't necessarily know them as well as a player, understanding their character and what their goal is with their character is really important, because that information is going to help guide you in your building. And then, I already said this, but stay flexible, because inevitably your players are going to do things you can't account for. Make sure you have backup plans, extra stat blocks, extra NPCs, extra monsters, encounters. So, keep your story flexible, River says. Play off of what the party does and interject the information and plot hooks into the story as needed. Let the dice tell the story, and above all, let's have fun. That's a great line, let the dice tell the story. Because I think that certainly as a first-time DM, I think that you can kind of get caught up in like what you want the players to experience. And you can only control that so much. A lot of the players' experience is going to be with their own character, with their own roles. So, I think that that's a strong point, letting the dice tell the story. And just kind of like letting things unfold as they would. That's why I say plan, but don't overplan. Because you want to give them structure, but you also want to give them agency, and that's a tightrope that all DMs walk all the time. But you just give them a sandbox with rules. Needs strong improvisation skill. Yeah, most definitely. If you can, take your players' personalities into account. One of our DMs has played with us long enough to expect us to do the weird thing, for sure. Never run a module before. I've been running games since 2002. Yeah, I don't think I ever have either. I've done one-shots. Like, I've done pre-made one-shots. But I don't ever think I've run, like... All my stuff's been homebrew. As a player and a DM. There's also no such thing as too much planning. Anything you prep that your players don't get to can be recycled into something else later. That's a great point. If you have extra stuff you don't use, just save it. Just keep it in a document somewhere. The only thing that's important is your story is how you tell it. Create how you tell your story as much as the story. A simple narrative told engagingly is better than railroading an epic quest. That's a good point from Scapelli. Actually, that kind of ties into a later question that we have, but... I'm about to run a new campaign. Most of us are in our late 40s. I found the most important thing is to keep things moving. Improvise all the small things in real time and make it fun. Recommend bullet points for the things that the party must encounter or know, and then make sure to fit those things into the story based on the party choices. It's railroading without railroading. Definitely. And there is... I think that there's another question about that later, too, that kind of ties in. Oh, yeah, it's Chris's question about puzzles. We'll talk about that later. But, flexibility and just being aware of the characters. The players, knowing the players' tendencies help. But the character, I think, is more important. Because at least how I am as a player, I try to avoid being the whole that's what my character would do kind of deal. But I also will a lot of times I'll decide beforehand, like what a particular, like the idea with Verena being addicted to drugs, that was kind of, it was kind of half in the moment and half not, because I knew that I wanted to give her something that would be potentially detrimental to herself and the party. And so that was an easy one and a fun one, and I stuck to that. And that type of behavior led to all kinds of crazy stuff with that story. They're pretty fun. Modules are pretty fun for someone who's starting out or didn't know how to really homebrew. Helps you get into the mindset of the DM. I address my party members as their characters. It helps with immersion and gets them into the mindset of what would my character choose to do. Yeah, that's a good idea too, if you can help that, like just calling people by their character name. And it's good for them too, because it's like you said, it reminds them of like, oh yeah, I'm not Charles, I'm Verena. What would Verena do? So yeah, I think that all of that stuff is helpful for you in guiding you in building your world. Because if you know what they're gonna, like what their plans are, then you can kind of plan around that. So I think you got some answers in there, Troy. Best of luck to you. Glad to hear that you're doing homebrew. Homebrew is when it gets real fun, I mean, modules are cool, I guess, but it's all about homebrew. You won't regret switching to homebrew. You'll never go back. All right, so thank you for the question, Troy. That was a good one. The next question of this evening is from Anna. And Anna asks, hi, Chaz. First time question, and it's definitely D&D related. Apparently, my hometown will be host to Wizards of the Coast's immersive live experience of Dungeons & Dragons. It's called D&D The Immersive Quest. It seems like a live event where you choose a class and go on an adventure. Would you and the crew ever go to something like that? Do you think we'll see more events like it in the future? Thanks so much. Thank you for the question, Anna. I thought I'd seen something about this on Instagram or Facebook or somewhere, but I looked it up after I got your question and was looking into it. It seems to be, I don't know if anybody's ever seen The Man Who Knew Too Little with Bill Murray. It's kind of a deep cut, weird movie, but the part of the plot of that film is that Bill Murray goes to visit his brother in England, and while he's there, his brother tries to kind of pawn him off on doing something else while he's in town, and so he sets him up for this thing called like Theater of Life, and he thinks throughout the film that he's part of this Theater of Life thing and that he's just like an actor, but in reality, he's like he's actually doing super secret spy stuff. So it reminds me of that. It also reminds me, it's like a kind of a combination of like escape rooms and LARPing. So I think it's a cool idea. I imagine that it takes a tremendous amount of planning and organization, but I think it's a cool thing. I wonder about the cost. I think it'd be cool if you had them all over the world and then people could go to like different ones. What it would have to be is they would have to all be connected somehow, where you could go to different ones and get like different rewards or different like achievements or badges or something. I'd be down to do this, but it'd have to be with my friends. I wouldn't want to do it with strangers. I'm a bit too reclusive to go on that on my own, but I have friends who would try to convince me. Sounds like one of those things I'd never spend my own money on, but if someone was paying for me, I feel that. That's how I am about escape rooms. Escape rooms were a thing where it was like I never wanted to like do it myself and spend the money. But then when my buddy Warren got married, he I guess it was his best man that got us the tickets for the escape room, but that was big fun. And getting to go do it in a group, it's a thing that I probably wouldn't have done on my own. Do they have food or drinks or anything? Yeah, they do. So hold on. Let me see if I can find, because there's an article about it. D&D, what's it called? Live Immersive Experience. It's in like Toronto. Here it is. What does this say? According to the Immersive Quest website, players will choose whether to play as a rogue, a druid, a fighter, or a wizard. Once they've chosen their class, they'll set off from the Yawning Portal Inn and eventually enter a dungeon to complete challenges and earn experience points. The adventure will culminate in an epic confrontation, assumably with the dragon at the heart of the story. And the experience will run for 4 months from December through March before moving to another North American city. I also wonder if they've set it up in like if they set it up like a con, in the sense that in addition to the experience that you're there for, there's also all kinds of like vendors. That's probably what's going on. Where and that's kind of brilliant, really, because you could just like partner with like a couple of bars or restaurants in the area where they've got stuff going on and just kind of like theme the stuff around it. Almost like a scavenger hunt. Oh, thank you, Chris. Chris posted a link to the article. That's the one I was reading, the Screen Rant one. It says it's quickly pushed into the live event space over the past year. Man, they're really just kind of throwing stuff at the wall. I mean, not to say that this isn't a cool idea, but it's just like, what a weird thing to put I mean, if they just put more effort into like the game. They partnered with Curious Hedgehog and Showpath Entertainment to produce Dungeons & Dragons The 20-Sided Tavern, a live theater experience in which audience members vote to determine the progress of an improvisational game. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's cool. I tend to agree with Flint, though, for sure. Like, it's not a thing that I probably wouldn't pay for it myself, but I'd go along. It's Ren Fair with LARP cosplay and D&D all in one. Hope someone like Jenny Nicholson goes and does a video. I'm not sure who that is. But, yeah, it sounds like a neat event. It'd be nice if they would do it. If they were smart, they would do it like traveling. That's probably what they'll do too, right? So this one runs for 4 months. I bet you like once they see how it succeeds, how it fares as far as revenue, that they'll try it in other cities. And it might get to a place where they're doing it all over. I'll take it easy, cats. Thanks for stopping by. She does videos about theme parks and stuff. Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be super dope. Be a cool thing. All right. So that's that question. Thank you, Anna. That's cool. So everybody check that out. And if you're in the, yeah, like I said, I guess this isn't like the Toronto, like Mississauga area in Canada. So if you're up there, check it out. Looks like it's going to be neato. Alrighty. The next question of the evening is from John. And John asks, greetings, DM. Another would you rather incoming. Since you're a bard with high scores in both intelligence and charisma, that's kind of you, would you rather have a high intelligence with Cha as your dump stat, or a high charisma with an int dump stat? Thank you in advance for your answer. Loving the new music. Thank you, John. That's kind of you. So I do tend to agree with that, though. Actually, I don't know where my other stats sit, but I'd say that int and Cha are probably my higher ones. It is the int dump stat, keep the Cha 100%. It's not even kind of a question. In 2024, charisma is an invaluable currency. Intelligence means almost nothing on like a major societal level. It's all about like what's cool. The idea that perception is reality is based in charisma. I would sacrifice half of my IQ points if it meant that I could be as charismatic as some of these, like, you know, uber successful people are. It's, you know, that's kind of a cheap answer, though. So I guess there's two real ways to look at it. Because, like, if you have intelligence and no charisma, well, I wouldn't say that you'd be happier. You might be. But if you had charisma and no intelligence, you could be rich. If you were intelligent and had no charisma, Well, I don't know. Money can currently buy a lot of cha. What if you had a high cha and a high int? I'd have whiz as my dump stat. I think wisdom. No, dexterity is my dump stat, like IRL. Dang, now that I'm saying all that stuff out loud, I'm just not sure. I feel like I was really confident in my answer of like, no, definitely. But I guess that it just depends on how you want to approach it. I think that I am. Also, by the way, like, I don't even know how charismatic I really am, as much as I just think that I'm honest. And I think that people relate to that. Or maybe it's that they don't feel as threatened because I'm honest. But ignorance is bliss. Don't tell me I don't want to know. Yeah, every time I think of that, I think of Cypher in The Matrix, just being like, just eating the steak. Like, I feel like I would have taken that route. Obviously without like all the villain stuff, but I can relate to that attitude. It doesn't really matter what I do as long as I do it with a flair. Yeah. That's bedknobs and broomsticks. But that's true though. I mean, sheesh. More now than ever. More today than ever, I think, is charisma more valued than intelligence. So I guess it depends. Like, if I was seeking true happiness, I'd probably take intelligence over charisma. But if I were just like seeking to succeed in the world or society as we know it as it is now, give me that cha. Definitely be happier if I knew less about it. Yeah. There's definitely a curse to intelligence as well. Like, I feel like if I were walking around without knowing as much stuff as I do in general about like what's going on, I'd probably be a lot happier, yeah. High cha, high int, mid dex, strength and whiz, dump con. Ooh, con's probably pretty bad for me too. Bedknobs and broomsticks. Oh, dude, that's one of my favorite movies all time. So good. Bobbing along on the bottom of the beautiful briny sea. Honesty is high. Wait, what? Honesty is high and low cha. Int is not the stat if you want true happiness. Yeah, I guess. I shouldn't say happiness. I guess I should say, like, I think intelligence would be the virtuous choice. Charisma would be the exploitative choice. People with high int are more likely to be completely miserable. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If you were really intelligent and not charismatic at all, then nobody would probably want to hang out with you. Versus if you were super charismatic and a total idiot, people love those people. That's like that. I mean, that'll get you. The sky's the limit if you've got high cha, low intelligence. So I don't know. I guess it's just kind of a pick your poison situation. What do you want to deal with? Yeah, dex and con are probably my dumb stats. I'd say I'm like mid in strength and wisdom, and then int and cha are the highest. It's partnering with someone who compliments you that makes success. Oh, well, that's nice. I'm very fortunate to have a great wife and partner. So, yeah. I think that matters too, who's with you. All right. Well, thank you for the question, John. I didn't guess. I guess I didn't give it too strong of an answer. I think that if I were forced, I'd say I'd take the cha. You can keep the intelligence. Because in addition to having more friends and being more successful in the world with really high charisma and low intelligence, you wouldn't know as much. So you probably not as sad, less often sad, more happy. All right. So the next question is from Chris. When I mentioned this earlier about puzzles, this would be kind of tie-in a little bit to what we were saying earlier. And Chris asks, while prepping a one-shot, I came across a tip for DMing puzzles. It suggested that sometimes the DM go in without a clear idea or understanding for how to solve the puzzle, that they should let the players brainstorm and attempt until the DM is convinced that it would work. The idea behind it being that not all puzzles are great. Wait a minute. The idea behind it being that not all players are great with more traditional puzzles, and it allows everyone a chance to shine. Would this be something you would consider trying when running a game? Thank you for the question, Chris. Yeah, I'd be down for doing something like this. I kind of already do. So, okay. So, chat, sound off. I wrote some stuff about this. So, as a DM, it seems like a great idea. I don't know how crazy I would be to know that as a player, but that's also because, like, I'm not that great at puzzles. And, like, I mean, I guess it depends on the puzzle, right? But so I think it's mostly circumstantial. But I would be annoyed to find out that it's like, oh, you just waited until you were satisfied and then that's the answer. That seems kind of annoying. I would use this as more of a parachute than a jetpack. That makes sense. So I wouldn't lead with the idea that there's no real answer. Or, even if you're not telling them, I wouldn't go in. I wouldn't like the idea of going in and just being like, at any moment they could solve it. Because it just seems kind of silly and disingenuous. And I think that the players would be able to pick up on that. So, I wouldn't lead with the idea that there's not really an answer and I can just kind of swoop in and give them credit for solving the puzzle. What I would more likely do is have an idea for what the puzzle is and what the answer is, and then adjust accordingly. So if we're spending too much time on the puzzle, then you can just kind of do that. I think it also depends on the puzzle itself, right? Because I'm a fan of like multi-layer puzzles that include the entire party, which gives each of them kind of an opportunity to input or to participate, as far as like, okay, well, in this puzzle, we need to move this really strong rock. So like the barbarian can do this. And like in the next puzzle, we got to get somebody that can slip through a really small hole so the druid can turn into a mouse or something. So all that's to say that if you've got somebody that's struggling on the puzzle, then I think that it's better to adjust in the moment than to just kind of walk in and be like, I don't know. Because I feel like, what if it's a situation where it's taking a while and then you've got more than one person who's not very good at puzzles, and then, one of those people do something and then it's like, oh, well, okay, cool, so you solve the puzzle. And then the other person feels maybe like they didn't contribute, like a certain type of way about it. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it. Yes, you can and should absolutely do this. Your party will get a morale boost, and you don't have to worry about making a puzzle that isn't too tough for your players to figure out. It's definitely one of those things that if you do, never tell your players. DM job is to know or decide what happens. Oh, wow, so we seem to be kind of split on this in chat. Some think that it's a great idea, and others not so much. It could be, Chris, one of these situations where it's just a case-by-case basis. I think that it depends on the players, depends on the DM, depends on the campaign, depends on the puzzle. I will say this. I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong about doing it. I just wouldn't be chomping at the bit to do it that way. And admittedly, if I were a player and we had spent 45 minutes on a puzzle and then we succeeded, and then later I found out that it's like, oh, there never really was an answer. I just was like satisfied with, because then it makes me feel, as a player, it makes you feel like you're kind of putting on a dog and pony show. So definitely, if you do it, don't let your players know about it. Don't really do puzzles when I GM, since they rarely actually fit as a challenge for the PCs rather than for the players. A puzzle with only one solution can completely frustrate a party. I've heard more complaints from both players and DMs about failures in that area. Have multiple solutions. Accept good player ideas. I like it. Less prep for the DM and watching them come up with a solution, so entertaining for the DM too. Some of the best ideas have come from things my players have said. I gained some inspiration from. Yeah, and I guess that I'm kind of this way with everything, like on the fence, and just kind of like trying to create a hybrid with that concept. So, maybe it's a thing where I think that if you can help it, the real move is to have a puzzle with 2 or 3 possible solutions. And also, as a backup, keep in mind as the DM that at any moment, because this I think is a great example of a time where it's important to remember your agency of the DM as like you being kind of like the god of that universe, so to speak. You can, you can have the sunrise in the middle of the night if you want as the DM. And so this is a great example of that, where it's like you can have a puzzle set up. It can have solutions. It can be challenging. It can be a thing that's dragging on and taking too long and players are getting frustrated. And you can just kind of pull that ripcord and be like, oh, you did it. And then you can always just kind of like retcon or explain that stuff later. But I think it'd be easier to explain, well, there was a solution and you were really, really close, so I just kind of gave it to you, than, oh, well, there wasn't a solution. I just kind of, I waited until you did this thing, and then that was it. It's just kind of weird. Definitely a case-by-case basis, yeah. Latest Geek and Sundry Goblin Mode episode had a well-done puzzle. Good players help a lot, too. You can always let the barbarian break the puzzle, yeah. Sometimes it does take forever. Hey, Avram, what's happening? Welcome. Puzzles and riddles are not where you want to improv. Improve or improv? Maybe both. Could be both. But yeah, I think it's a cool idea. I don't know how much I would implement it. That's what I'll say. Final answer. That's where I'm at. All right, let's keep it moving because we have 3 more questions, and then we'll do a little chat, and then I want to try and get out of here, see if I might be able to catch that fight. I don't know what the deal is with it. If somebody's got it on, let me know where we are. All right, so this next question of the evening, thank you for that one, Chris. This next question is from Evan. And Evan asks, hey, Charles, something happened in our last session, and you're the perfect person to ask about it. So I died. Well, my character did. It was a stupid move on my part, but long story short, DM has given me the choice of making a new PC or working with her to come up with a way to bring my character back to life. Oh, this is big fun. This is right up my alley. Part of me wants to return. Another part wants to make a new character. What do you think? Thank you for the question, Evan. This sounds like a really fun predicament to be in. So, I wrote some stuff down about this because, indeed, I am a good person to ask about this. I have quite the background. The first thing I said was, why not both? I mean, that's what I always do. Have a character die? How about they didn't die, and you make a new one anyway? That's me all over. I think a lot of it has to do with what best serves the story. So, for starters, you might consider how your character died. Is it because were you messing with stuff? And also, like, is this a character thing or a player thing? It could be that your character's careless or overly bold. That was certainly the case for me with Verena in the We Play. That was just the nature of her character, was extreme. So, in that sense, having another character that I played in Augustus Montgomery, who was way more chilled and kind of like down to earth, that was really fun for me as a player to kind of like explore those extreme, those extreme differences. Your carelessness or boldness could be a detriment to the party, but it also is a thing that could keep it exciting. On the other hand, a new character could be anything that you want. And And now that you and the DM know more about the overall party composition and how those players interact with one another, you could craft a new character to fit into that mold or disrupt it. I also think that there is a third option, which is to say that your original character comes back to life, but it's completely different in their personality and decision making than before. So maybe like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing. Like everyone thought that you died, but you actually just like suffered a horrible accident. You could also do amnesia. Depending on the circumstances surrounding the character death, you could make it a thing where you were saved by like a vampire or a genie or any number of monsters or entities. Perhaps a pact with a demon, maybe even a deal with the BBEG. So you return to the party, but everything is different, and no one really knows that but you and the DM. And we've talked about that before. I saw River said, perfect opportunity for a secret bad guy. We've talked about that before with sort of infiltrating the party with a villain. That's an opportunity for that. Something maybe to, brainstorm, talk to the DM about. But I definitely think that you have a lot of choices. What I would do if I were you is probably more of the third option, where it's, I don't necessarily make a new character, but I make a new character, So like that, so you bring that character back, and because of whatever circumstances, whether it's, whether they're under a spell or they've made some deal where they made a deal with some entity who promised to, bring them back to life if they agreed to follow whatever their orders were. Warlock pact and bring back or build something different. Do both. Have the resurrection go awry. Possession. Old character is resurrected with a new soul. It's a cool idea. And doesn't necessarily mean that the original character is totally dead. Maybe they're just dormant within there. Were you an idiot and got yourself deaded, or did you go out in a blaze of glory? Come back, but not the same. We had a half-orc character D&D die and be brought back as a pixie. It's true, too. Yeah. Oh, that's another thing. Yeah. You could move that soul of that character into another body. Secret Bad Guy requires a very special player group. Death was off-screen. Totally didn't count. An aboleth finds you interesting and decides to defy fate and bring you back. But you are now a goo warlock, and you're a pawn in the aboleth's games. During the summer of death, I must have made 1,000 characters. Yeah. It's hard to resist making a new character, because I feel kind of, how like streaming services capitalize on the fact that like people spend a lot of time looking for what to watch and not actually watching. I feel like that can kind of be the case with D&D, where like people spend more time building than they do playing. So, and as somebody who does this a lot, like there's a lot of value in like getting a new slate, especially since you already know what time it is within the party. Because like when everybody starts a campaign, you don't really know like what it looks like until you're a couple of sessions into it. And so in my case with the We Play and with the Airships campaign, I count myself really lucky for being able to be in those scenarios where I have one character that I started with, didn't really know where it was going. And then in the middle of the campaign, that character kind of like goes away or becomes a different thing. And then I get to bring in a whole new character, knowing kind of what I already do about the composition. And, walking that meta tightrope. But necromancy is fun. A great old one. Yeah, that's the Goo Warlock. All right. So, but yeah, I think that you should do what your instinct tells you. If you want to make a new character, go ahead. If you want to bring the old one back, if you want to do both, I will say this. If you go secret bad guy, don't build another character. That's just going to complicate things. Take it from somebody who did secret bad guy with 2 characters. What? I don't have hundreds of books filled with maps, NPCs, towns, city designs, and characters for when I need to play. Not a gelatinous cube warlock. I don't know about that, dude. That's a different thing. All right, so thank you for the question. person. So sorry. I lost my list of names. I don't know where it was. Evan. That was Evan's question. Yeah. Do what you want. I secret bad guy. I vote for secret bad guy. If you could do secret bad guy, do secret bad guy. Or secret bad gal. You know? All right. So we've got 2 more questions. We'll do a little chat. The last question is Pirate's question, and which will kind of lead into chat. We can talk about stuff. But this next question before that is from John. A different John. Another John. And John asks, okay, Chaz, who you got for the Tyson-Paul fight? Knowing boxing, their match probably won't even start until the podcast is over, but I was curious who you think will win and who you want to win. Thank you for the question, John. You ask that as if they might be different answers, but I'm Tyson all the way. Not only do I think that Tyson will win, I want Tyson to win. I've never been a fan of those Paul brothers. They're just not my cup of tea. And I think that Jake, because of his social media personality and empire and career, this persona that he's built for himself and like his fans, I think that might have gassed him up a bit too much in terms of his capabilities if he thinks that he can beat Mike Tyson. Now, granted, Tyson is almost 60, but if you're my age or older, you know about Mike Tyson. And I think to this day, he's probably one of the scarier people on the planet. He's just a dude that you don't want to mess with. If Paul wins, we know the fight was fixed. Yeah, probably. Certainly if he wins by like decision, I don't know. I have a feeling that Tyson's going to knock him out. Maybe it is a thing where it's fixed. And it's just kind of like a publicity, let's get paid type deal. I kind of feel that was the case with the Floyd Mayweather-Conor McGregor fight. But, they're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. So, have you heard his punches? Yeah, I saw that recent clip of him knocking his sparring partner out. Like the dude that's like the trainer that was like in charge was like, oh, no, okay, that's enough. Let's stop. Because he was like knocking him down. The other thing about Tyson is that, boxing is a young man's game, and Jake probably is going to run around a lot. Because the thing about a guy like Tyson is that if you let him get inside, that's all. That's the fight. It's like, whoops, he got too close, and now you're almost dead. So, personally, I hope he goes all Holyfield on him. I saw a thing, and I don't know if this is true, but I saw a thing where Jake is supposedly going to be wearing diamond ear guards. It's like when a teen tries to fight his dad, like farmer strength, don't sleep on old man strength. Yeah, I think that's true. And also, it's not just a thing of like who he was. He's been training pretty seriously. And if anybody knows how to get into the type of shape that you need to like knock out another grown man, it's Mike Tyson. He certainly has much more of a track record with it than Jake Paul. Jake Paul's, if you look at the list of his fights, he tries to capitalize on the idea of these kind of has-been fighters. And the only real fighter that he fought, Tommy Fury from Love Island. Well, I should say from Love Island fame, but he's a good boxer. But Tommy Fury beat him. So like the one time that he fought like a legit boxer that was like his age, he lost. Tyson just predicted a vicious win. Tyson's the best, dude. I've been watching him all week. He was saying Jake's going to run. He's going to run like a thief. He probably will too. I would if I was Jake. That would be the survival move. If you're in the ring with Tyson, is just try and like keep your distance, because I think that Jake is slightly taller and probably has a bit more of a reach. He should really try and use that to his advantage, because like I said, Tyson's the kind of guy, like if he gets inside on you, that's a wrap. Dunzo. He wasn't really legit either. Fury only beat bums, honestly. Oh. Well, I mean, I think that what I guess the main point I brought up Tommy Fury is to say that, like, everybody else that Jake has fought has either been much older than him or not a boxer. So Tommy Fury, as far as I know, and maybe that's changed since, but as far as I know, Tommy Fury is like the only person that's like an actual boxer that's like his age that he's fought, and he lost that fight. So I think that his internet persona precedes any of the boxing stuff, and so as a result, it's a bit inflated, you know. And I would never claim to say that I know a heck of a lot about boxing either, but it's just. Also, notice how no one talks about that fight. Yeah. Oh, of course not. Yeah. But we'll see. Oh man. I'm hoping beyond hope that it's just like the bell rings and it's like in 17 seconds they've got the guys with smelling salts in the ring for Jake. It might happen. That would be really cool to see. I do tend to agree with the fact that, like, if it goes 8 rounds and it's like a decision, or, you know, God forbid, Tyson or Jake knock out Tyson, I just don't see that happening. All right, so we're thank you for the question, John. That was fun. Tyson's my answer. That's who I want to win. That's who I think is going to win. The last question of the evening, and the one that will send us into a chat conversation, is from Pirate. And Pirate asks, vampires and lycanthropy, is it a curse or is it genetics? Typically, you have to be bit by a vampire or werewolf and then succumb to the hunger, thirst, or moon. And by that I mean you have to drink the blood of the vampire who bit you, as the vampirism disease is in the blood. But if a dog bit a vampire and ingested the blood, does that qualify, or does it need a consent component? And if the bite doesn't do anything but put you in a suggestive state, is vampirism something you can fight off if you don't drink the blood of the one who bit you? And with lycanthropy, is it a curse bestowed on an individual, or is it something genetic? Thank you for the question, Pirate. Things I've never thought about for 500, Alex. But it's a cool question. I'm glad that you asked it, and I did put a little of an answer together. Be interested to hear what chat says about it. So this is, for me, another why not both type situation, because I feel like it can work both ways, and it might need to work differently depending on the circumstance. So, and I think that that's true with human disease, right? Like some diseases and illnesses are genetic, and then others just kind of develop on their own, and then maybe it's a combination of the two. So I think that both can be true depending on the character and the rules of the world. I also don't know if vampirism affects non-human creatures, or how it does if it does, and how that works if it does. I imagine if there was a vampire dog running around, it wouldn't probably be a result of genetics. That would more likely be a curse. But different properties do it differently too, right? Like different worlds in fiction do it differently. So a lot of it depends on what you're trying to accomplish, I think, with the storytelling. So if your goal is to have your players or your audience fear turning into the creatures, then definitely make it a curse, something that they can contract. But maybe it's a situation where you've got an NPC that's a werewolf or a vampire that has a history of like war with a particular species, and that feud goes back several generations. In that case, I think the genetics are an important part of the character makeup. And also, depending on the circumstances and who you ask, genetics are a curse. So that, you know, I think that you can kind of get to both in that. I look at it as a cross between curse and disease, like a magical virus. I see them both as curses, but it really depends on the lore of the fiction you're in. Had a long discussion about this while I was in the field this past week digging holes. Watching in the shadows. Maybe they would be some kind of a goofy half-breed. Yeah, I mean, it could be kind of a combination of the things, where maybe you've got like a dormant gene that's awakened by the turning or the curse. That could be a thing. That's a whole different thing. Some diseases only work with certain species, which implies the disease requires certain genetics. Like many diseases can't jump species. That's a good point. Diabetes, genetic and random. Yeah, exactly. Like diabetes is a perfect example because diabetes is something that could be genetic. It could also be something that you develop. And it could be something that you develop that you have a genetic predisposition for and that you develop not necessarily because of your genetics. So yeah, I think it's kind of... I think in this case, the circumstances matter as to the character in the story. Like to what end does it matter, I guess, whether it's curse or genetics? Probably only to the end of like the lore of whatever it is. Triple H's dog in Blade Trinity was a vampire dog. Oh, that's true. Yeah, oh, that is true. There was a vampire dog in Blade. Vamp Wolf gets bitten by a spider when exposed to theta radiation meteor. In most media, it's an affliction passed via bite from the infected person, i.e., if you bite them, you aren't infected. But in the end, it's your choice to decide which way to go. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if you have a choice, it's not much of a curse. Right? I would assume that like to be cursed with something would be to have like something bestowed upon you that you didn't decide. But if it's a thing where you have to drink the blood of the vampire that bit you, then there's, I don't know. I don't know. I can see how you got into an argument or a conversation with this conversation all day about this, because I could talk about this all day. The genetic aspect of that would be more like a familial bloodline curse, and it manifests in a genetic way. Like the curse altered the genetics of the progenitor? I don't know if I know that word, of the curse to be able to be passed. Could be a quest to heal. To stop the virus from spiraling out of control, if a dog consumed a corpse of a vampire, it would just die. Yeah, I thought about that too earlier when you made the point of like, well, what would happen, if you just like resisted drinking the blood? And it's like, well, I think then you would die, right? I think that that's how it works. If I'm a vampire, and I bite you, and then you're going to die, if I feed you my blood, then you're going to turn into a vampire. If you don't, you'll just die. Progenitors, a person or thing from which a person, animal, or plant is descended or originates. Oh, okay, cool. I misspoke. I meant it's your choice to decide which way to take the story, not your choice to decide if you're infected or not. Oh. Well, yeah, and again, it's another, I think, why not both, and also another... depends on the circumstances. So there's a lot that goes into it. I would say that whether or not your genetic lycanthropy is a is a very interesting topic. If you look at Bram Stoker's Dracula, was he cursed or was he genetic? If he was the first and he bit someone, they wouldn't be affected by the curse, but it would change their genetics. Yeah, but also, like, to River's point, the curse and the genetics are the same. While the person is passed out, the vampire puts their cut wrists in the mouth, like Interview with a Vampire. Yeah, that's how they do it in Interview with a Vampire. That's true. So, I think ultimately it's up to you, the storyteller, as to what those rules are. I don't know how they did it in, like, Twilight or whatever. I never saw those, but... to me, I've always felt of it as more of like a curse than a genetic thing. But that's to say that I think that there can be genetic vampires. Well, I don't know. It depends on the vampire, I guess, whether or not they could have offspring. It's genetic in the Grimm universe, that's true. A campaign of 2 years just defeated Strahd a half hour ago. Nice. Good for you. Fantastic. Well done. Enjoy your victory. I say quest to heal because it takes main time to get full effect. 3 bites, etc. In Twilight, they got glitter on them. That stuff never comes off. It is indeed a real conundrum, Pirate, and one that we'll probably have to continue at another time because we are in the middle of chat, and I'm not going to be hanging around too much longer because, like I said, I want to try and get in there for the fight. So, any last notes for chat? What's good things of the week? What's going on with people? My wife and I went to Gainesville today, which was nice. She got to visit with her sister, and we theoretically have an episode coming out this weekend, but unforeseen circumstances may or may not have that pushed a week. We should have one coming out. Good thing for the week is you had your job interview last week. Went well. Had a follow-up yesterday and being submitted to the HR department as a potential hire. Organization is FEMA. Nice. Well done, Pirate. That's great. Hopefully that means security for you. Have fight on TV will alert if made. Thank you, Chris. Putting a stake through Strahd's heart was good. I bet. It's a good feeling. A buddy of mine sent me a bunch of your medications. Oh, good. Glad to hear it. Daughter turns 1 on the 20th. She was born in the front seat of your truck. Whoa. Well, happy birthday. Happy 1. On the 20th, that'll be interesting, having a Thanksgiving birthday. Well, in that area. I'd rather have a birthday close to Thanksgiving than like the week of Thanksgiving than the week of Christmas, Also posted in the Discord you're going on an adventure next week. Oh yeah, I did see something about that. Yeah, I expect full reports, Pirate. I'll be keeping an eye on the Discord for that. An adventure that will affect all of us. The embrace is the act of transforming a mortal into a vampire. It is the only this is interesting. It's the only act of reproduction of which the clanites are capable. A vampire drains and replaces a victim's blood with a bit of their own to pass the curse of vampirism to a mortal. So this is to say that, like, vampirism exists as genetics and can be passed on as a curse. So it is kind of both. I like that. Birthday near. Thanksgiving guarantees max presents, like extended family. Can't not give a gift. That's true. Oh, that's a good point. You're more likely to see extended family at Thanksgiving than you are at Christmas. So there you go. All right, so before we get out of here, let's do a couple other things that we like to do before we get out of here. The first of which is to remind everybody of the email address, of course, which is bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice. Please send all your questions, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques, etc. there, bardadvice@gmail.com. If you want to get some merch, go over to manshorts.com or go over to krakendice.com and get yourself a set of the dice if you haven't already. And if you want to contribute to anything that I'm doing musically, you can do so directly via PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo, all of which are Yazzik, YAHZICK. I will be back here next week, same Bard time, same Bard channel, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Man Shorts YouTube channel. The audio for this podcast, as always, will be made available tomorrow at 12 p.m. noon Eastern Standard Time. I hope that everybody has a fantastic weekend and an even better week, and we will see you next time.